This is the Building a Clear, Authentic Brand podcast, and I'm your host, Amy Dardis. And today I am so excited to have Tom Vander Well on the show. Tom is the CEO of Intelligentics. They are a customer experience research and training firm, and he's actually spent more than 30 years analyzing over 100,000 recorded business conversations across corporate America, which actually led him to write his book, This Call May Be Monitored: What Eavesdropping on Corporate America Taught Me About Business and Life. So, Tom, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Amy, thanks so much for having me. I'm just really honored to be on the show.
So, that's an interesting occupation that you have. It's an interesting business that I'm sure you didn't grow up thinking, wow, one day I really hope that I'm listening to recorded conversations.
No, not at all. And in fact, I always say that, when the guidance counselor in high school talks to you about what you might want to do for a career, if anybody had told me, well, Tom, you're going to spend your life listening to over 100,000 business phone calls, I would have just said, prescribe me antidepressants and get me a therapist because that just sounds awful. But one of the things that I've learned in my experience is that God knows what's better for us than we sometimes know for ourselves. And so after going down a path that I thought I was supposed to be on and becoming clear that that wasn't the path I was supposed to be on, the door opened for this really strange job. It was 1994, and the whole idea of call monitoring and quality assessment, your call being monitored for quality and training purposes, it was kind of a brand new thing. And like literally my first client that I worked with, we were using cassette recorders and literally like connecting the cassette recorder to a phone jack that was like on a customer service representative's desk. And then we'd wait for them to answer the phone and hit the record button. And like my desk for years was just piles of cassette tapes, and my Walkman was my friend. And boy, technology has changed a lot. But I got to get into it like on the ground floor. And I was kind of like in the pioneer stages of this whole business discipline. And it's just been a wild ride. And there's just so many things that I've learned in that experience.
When you first got started, like, do you remember what your initial thoughts were on this experience of sitting there and listening to other people's conversations?
Yeah. And people kind of go, wow, you must have heard some really interesting things in your career. And I have, but the reality is that most customer conversations are really routine.
Mhm.
They're robotic. They're the same thing over and over and over again. And so there's a piece of it that's like really boring, and really boring. I mean, yeah. At the same time, what it caused me to do is like, okay, there's more going on in this conversation
Mm.
than anybody in the conversation is aware of. And it forces you to kind of go deeper to understand the layers of communication that are happening, because that's where the gold is, especially from a business perspective.
Yeah.
And like even today, companies who do QA, quality assessment, and call monitoring, they oftentimes just focus on what that customer service representative is saying, or just what they say and how they say it, and did they do what was expected of them. But there is so much more going on that if you learn how to listen and you learn how to hear, there's just so much for a business to learn from about what the pain points customers are experiencing and the systemic issues that may not be working for the customer, or the policies or procedures our company has that, you know what? Customers just think they're stupid and they're creating calls and problems. And if you can get to that level of listening, then you can begin to really see an ROI that's far beyond just what a customer service representative says. It's beginning to really help move the customer experience to a different level.
That's one of the points that you make in your book, right? Is like learning how to listen actively. Is that
Mhm.
something that you felt like you've always been a good listener, or is that something you feel like you've had to develop along the way?
Well, it's interesting because another piece that comes out in my book is that when I went to college, I had asked several mentors of mine, who wise adults who I really valued, say, if you had to do it all over again, what would you do? And I had multiple people say, you know what? I would have really focused my undergraduate degree in college on what I really loved, what I was really passionate about.
Mm.
And so I was really passionate about theater. I loved acting and I loved theater in high school and was really involved. So I became a theater major. And and the cool thing about being a theater major is that I learning theater is really about communication
Mhm.
and understanding not just the text of the role, but the subtext, what's really
Yes.
going on. And so I really felt like being a theater major prepared me for active listening and for understanding that there are layers of communication that are happening in this conversation. I couldn't have had a better education for what I do. And the cool thing, and in my book, Amy, I kind of split it up and like the the title of the book is This Call May Be Monitored: What Eavesdropping on Corporate America Taught Me About Business and Life.
Mhm.
Because what the book really pulls out is that in listening to 100,000 business conversations, I've learned lessons, spiritual lessons, human lessons that have helped me in just being a better husband and father. And one of those is just what you're talking about, these layers of communication that in as I break down these business conversations into these different levels, I began to understand that, well, wait a minute, when my wife and I are having a conflict, there are multiple things going on here. It's not just the words. There's a meta communication that's happening. And so it allowed me in many cases throughout my marriage to be able to step back and go, okay, let's talk about how we're talking about this conflict,
Mhm.
because that sometimes is really where the rub is. It's like going, well, wait a minute, we're saying these things and feeling these things, but the reality is that the miscommunication is happening on a different level. And if we can
Yeah.
figure out how we're miscommunicating, then we can come together and figure out how to resolve this conflict. And you know what? That happens in every human conflict. I don't care what it is.
No, I agree. I do. So you made two interesting points there. One was that your seemingly very unrelated theater background, like, ended up preparing you for what you would step into without you knowing that. But obviously, it's so cool how God uses things that we would have never guessed to help prepare and shape us for a calling on our life. And then two, that when you're talking and learning all these things in business, it's not a silo, right? What we learn in business, like, as much as we would love to probably think that we separate work and life and, oh, that's business stuff and that's my kid stuff and that's my marriage stuff, like, it's not that clean, and it 100% doesn't work that way.
Absolutely. And so let me unpack a couple of lessons that came out of being a theater major that helped me in business. So in 2006, I began writing this blog. It's called the Wayfarer blog. It's now a podcast as well. And the idea was simple. I read one chapter of the Bible every weekday, and then I just read the chapter. I think about what it means for me today, and then I blog
Say it.
about what it makes me think about. And
Mhm.
I started that in 2006. I'm still doing it. I've been
So
through the Bible a couple of times. So that is my blog. But sometimes I have an idea or a brainstorm and I just throw it out there in a blog post. So in over 20 years and over 5,500 blog posts, I've had one post go viral. One. And it was in 2012. And it wasn't one of my chapter a day posts. I just had this brainstorm. I was on a plane on my way home from a business trip. And I was thinking about how being a theater major has really prepared me for my job and for life in amazing ways. So in like 10, 15 minutes, I just typed out this post: 10 ways being a theater major prepared me for success. I got home, I threw it out to the internet, and it blew up.
that's
And
crazy.
like I had, for somebody whose chapter day posts got, 20, 30 views, this theater major post had over 100,000 views in the first month. And I
Wow.
started getting emails from actors and producers in Hollywood and Broadway saying, my gosh, this is, the world needs to hear this. And to this day, it you'll find this post on countless university and college theater program websites.
That's so cool.
Yeah, and so, but it's really, really true because what theater did for me, so I think about it, not only was it the communication and learning communication, but I do a lot of presentations. I do a lot of customer service training. And one of the things you learn in theater is how to improvise when things aren't going right. And when somebody blows a line, you got to figure it out in the moment. There are countless times that I'm in front of a huge audience and things aren't going right, and I got to improvise in the moment. There are there are times where you just have to make do with what you have. And that was something I learned. Coaching people. So in my acting training, I had to learn how to get inside a character that I'm portraying. You do character
Mhm.
analysis and you do character studies and you figure out who this person is and you figure out what's their motivation. And as I coached people to be a better customer service representative, one of the things I learned is it's no different than actor training because different people are motivated by different things.
Yeah.
So if I have a really sweet person who is altruistically motivated to just care for people, well,
Mhm.
that's a slam dunk. But sometimes I've had people that are like, they're only motivated by money, or they're only
Mhm.
motivated by pride, or they're only motivated by competitiveness and being number one. And I've had to learn how to tailor my coaching based on the thing that's going to motivate that person. I learned all of that in acting.
Yeah.
And so there are just all of these different ways that my theater training, being a theater major, just there's, and it's just amazing because it's a God thing.
Yeah.
Only God could know that, oh,
Oh,
no. This is what you need to do because this is what's going to serve you.
so true. I wasn't a theater major in college, but I did theater all throughout high school, and yeah, I
Yes.
think it gave me
Yes.
some great skills.
Yes, and I've actually had a couple of opportunities. I've been in a couple of films and worked with some, you know, I worked with the director who was the director of the camp classic The Blob back in the 1950s with Steve McQueen, and worked for him for a number of years. I was in a short film with a couple of people that you would know in Hollywood today, and I've experienced that. But I also, here in Little Pella, Iowa, where I live, I was president of our local community theater for like 13 years. And one of the things I bring out in the book is that there's a difference between companies who really care about service excellence. They really care about doing things right. And I
Mhm.
liken that to a really professional theater or film production where the difference between good and great is in the details.
Mhm.
And most of my clients over the years have taken the journey of kind of going, no. We want to be great. We want our customers to really have a experience that leaves them wanting to come back and bring their friends and talk about how great we are.
Mhm.
And there's a journey to getting there, and that's what Intelligentics does. Most businesses operate like community theater, where it's sort of like, let's just throw people up on stage with a memorized lines and have fun and just do your best. And that's what businesses often do. Well, hey, we've got good people. Just get on the phone. Just do your thing. You're a good person. I'm sure you're doing a great job. Well, they may be a great person. I'm sure they are. But that doesn't mean they are really great at customer service. It doesn't mean that they are at a level where they're delivering an exceptional customer experience. And the only way to get there is by listening and coaching and training people how to deliver that experience. So that's just another level where
Yeah.
theater just kind of taught me, wow, no difference between business and show business.
So you said the part about listening, but then also about, like, people being motivated by different things, and
Hmm.
have you found that there are some people who are naturally wired to be great at customer service, and there are some people who are not?
Yes, absolutely. It's true. I got a couple of great stories for you. One is that we worked for this company that was a cable company, basically like back in the days of the big cable companies.
Mhm.
And they had customer service team, but then they also had a retention team, which meant that if a customer called in and said, hey, I want to cancel my subscription, I'm thinking about going to DirecTV or whatever, the retention team would get that call. And you had people whose job it was to try and give them an offer to keep them as a customer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a sales
Yeah.
process, basically. And what we learned as we worked with this client over many years is that there are people who are really good at the customer service, the care, and the people who are really good at the retention are different people. And
Mm-hmm.
they're motivated by different things. And if you have the wrong people in the wrong seats, then you're going to struggle because salespeople are different. And that brings me to my next story, because one of my first coaching experiences was with this company. It was a sales team. They sold little electronic components that go get and manufactured as part of other bigger things. And one of the sales guys, young, brash, braggadocio young man. And so I'm sitting in the conference room waiting for our first coaching session together. And he walks in, and he's a big guy, and he's towered over me. Like, I'm sitting at the conference, he towered like over me. And he said, I just want you to bleep and know that I care what you bleep and think about this, and there's nothing you can bleep and tell me about my bleeping job that's going to help me in bleeping ways to do this. Like, I mean, it was just this like expletive laden like rant, and he gets done, and I'm like, okay, have a seat. We're off to a good start. And I coached that young man for over 25 years.
Oh my gosh.
Every quarter, sometimes every 2 months. And early on in the relationship, I come back to like, I didn't want to coach him. He didn't want to be coached. And I'm feeling, so I'm like, I got to approach this something different. So I went back to my acting training. I'm like, well, what motivates him? And one of the things I thought about is like, you know what? It's obvious. What motivates him is money.
Mm-hmm.
He's a sales guy. He wants to make money. He's a young guy. He wants accumulate all the wealth and all the stuff and be successful. And so I tried a different tack with him. And the next coaching session, I sat down and I said, hey, look, I know you don't want to be here. I know you don't want to go through this process, but just hear me out, because we have surveyed your customers. We've literally surveyed your customers. And they have told us, when I'm doing business with you, these are the things that I want. These are the things that satisfy me. These are the things that drive that satisfaction. So when I'm coaching you to apologize because the customer's expectations haven't been met, or to use the customer's name to build that rapport and personal service relationship, and be courteous when you're asking for information, I said, I know it seems trivial and stupid, but I can tell you that this is what your customers say they really value. So if you deliver it and they are more satisfied,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get more sales and you're going to make more money. And you're going to have customers who are like going, oh, well, I buy stuff with this other competitor over here, but I'd much rather buy it from my favorite sales guy over here because I just love working with him. And I said, it's a no-brainer. It's least worth a shot, because I'm just talking about saying a few words. And you know what? He would never, ever, ever admit it. Never would he admit it. And never did he not complain and have a bad attitude. But as we listened to the calls and we analyzed the data, he began doing the things I was coaching him to do. Slowly, but he began building different habits. And guess what? I watched him in his career go from frontline sales to becoming one of the global sales account managers for the entire company.
Wow.
And one of the greatest compliments I've ever had in my career is, now fast forward like 25 years, and we're in this sales meeting with all these newbie salespeople, and he's sitting there now, the global account manager, and he goes, hey, you guys, I just want you to know, you're going to hate Tom. You're going to hate him, and you're going to hate doing this call monitoring thing. You're going to hate doing the coaching thing. I get it, because I always hated it, but you know what? It's important, and it works, and it will make you a better salesperson. I'm like, oh, yes! Like,
Oh.
I'll take the compliment. It's like going, well, sometimes you do the work and you don't feel the fuzzy, warm things that come from it, but in the end, you succeed. And that was one of the things I learned.
Did his relationship towards you change over that 25 years? Like, when you guys were
You
doing
know,
the one-on-one stuff?
I mean, it did. You know, he got to a point of just like going, okay, we got to do this.
Mhm, but he never fully I mean, he bought
No,
in, but he, like, didn't there was
no,
never very
there was never like, hey, Tom, it's good to see you. It was always like a rolling of the eyes. Oh, you're here again. Yeah. It just was what it was. And I knew that it wasn't personal.
Mm,
I just showed like, I know this isn't personal. And, you know, if we'd gone out for lunch or hang out after work, it would have been fine. We'd had a great conversation and gotten along just fine. But he just hated the process of having to listen to his own calls and be told that you can do this better. And it just was what it was.
so in your business, that's kinda like the approach you guys take is you listen to the call and then you
Hmm.
you figure out the data, but then you also take that, and then what do you do with that with your client? How do you
Yes.
implement that?
So there are really three pieces to it. And it's, you know, when people say, well, what is it you do? My mother used to ask that at least once a year. What is it
What do
that
you
you do? I don't get it. Okay. Well, at the core of it, we're a market research firm. We do customer satisfaction research and voice of the customers, any kind of market research we do, just like any other market research firm. But our founder, Mr. Winger, was like going, you know, there's there's a bigger opportunity because a classic research firm will do the survey of your customers, will figure out how satisfied they are and what drives their satisfaction, and then you give them the report and you plop it on their desk, and it's their responsibility at that point to do whatever they're going to do with it.
Mhm,
So he said, well, wait a minute. So what if we said, all right, here's what your customers are saying. Here's what they expect, and here's what will drive their satisfaction. But now we're actually going to listen to a sample of actual moments of truth where the customers are interacting with the company, whether that's sales or customer service or accounting or collections or whatever. I've listened to everything. And we're going to listen to those analytically to really analyze, well, where are the gaps? Where are there things the customers are saying, hey, this is what really satisfied me, but we're really not delivering that. And once we've identified where that gap is, well, then the third step is really natural. Either we do some team training to say, here are the opportunities to improve that customer experience by consistently saying this and approaching situations this way, or sitting down one on one and coaching people one on one. Let's listen to a couple of your phone calls and then let's talk about the opportunities you have. And we know this isn't just like off the shelf customer service training. This is no, we've listened to your customers. Your
right.
customers are saying that this is what they want. So I am going to help you do what your customers want. And if we do that, then we know that your customers will be more satisfied. If they're more satisfied, they'll be more loyal. You're going to retain them longer. And everyone knows it's a lot harder to get a new customer through the door than it is to keep an existing customer. And
Mhm.
that's really where the ROI is. And so, like with this company I told you about, we literally just kind of went through that circle again and again for over 25 years. Every year
Wow.
we do a survey. What's the customer saying this year? On an ongoing basis, we were listening to their sales team, and on a quarterly basis, I was coaching that team, and we just kind of became their research and quality team for over 25 years until they sold to a big German conglomerate. So yeah.
So it was tailored and specific to them, but
Mhm.
doing it across all the clients that you've had, have you found common themes with those gaps being present?
Yes, absolutely. There are always nuances by customer base and by industry or market, but there are three universals. And I talk
Okay.
about this in the book. I call
Okay.
it the holy trinity of customer satisfaction. And there it's always these three, and it's always in the same order. And I don't
Okay.
care what company it is. Number one is one contact resolution. I've got a problem. I've got a question. I want to call you or email you or contact you, and I want that resolved in one contact. And number two is I want to feel like you care about me as a customer. Courtesy, friendliness. I want to feel like I've got a personal relationship with you as a company, to feel like you care about me as a customer, that you care that my expectations have not been met, That's number two. And number three, which actually in the first 15 years of my career, not quite 15 years, there were only two. Those were the only two. And
Okay.
then in 2007, Steve Jobs and Apple introduced this gadget, and the smartphone came into being. And starting in 2000, our research began to show that time-related dimensions of service began to grow as a driver of satisfaction across the board, like with every client in every industry. And it only got bigger when Amazon came into the picture. And so technology has created this third person in the holy trinity of customer satisfaction, and that is respect my time.
Mhm.
Now, there's a little bit of nuance here, and this is where also there's a great lesson for life. In research, we talk about what are penalty variables and what are reward variables. A penalty variable is a dimension of service where the customer says, if you do this, I am not going to reward you for doing it because I just expect it.
Mhm.
But if you don't do it, I am definitely going to penalize you with diminished satisfaction. And our research consistently shows, like we'll ask customers, how many contacts did you have to make to get your issue resolved? And then we'll take, all right, here's all the customers who had one contact resolution. And then we'll say, all right, of those customers, what was the percent that were overall satisfied or very satisfied with the company? And it's usually like 95 to 100%. Then we say, all right, of the people who said it took two contacts, overall, how many satisfied, very satisfied with the company? And it drops like 25%. And three
Okay.
contacts, it drops another 15%. And it goes to four contacts, it drops to only, 20% being satisfied or very satisfied with the company. And
So,
what
hold
that
on.
means,
I have a clarifying question. When you say
yeah,
contact, you mean like a person as a contact, or like I sent one email and it got
yeah,
resolved in that
yeah,
email, or I talked to
yes.
one person and I
It's
just talked to that
how
one
many
person?
times did I have to talk to the company? How many contacts
Okay.
between me and the company did it take?
Okay.
So, and it gets, this here's where it's nuanced as well, because customers say, all right, I call you and I say, hey, I have got a problem with my order. And you say, I'm going to have to look into that and I will call
Call
you
you back.
back. All right. So now I'm waiting for a call back,
Yes.
but I never hear from you. And so now it's a day, it's 2 days, it's 3 days. And I pick up the phone and I say, call you back and go, hey, you were supposed to call me back. You never did. In the customer's mind, that's the third contact. Even though it's only the second physically, the second contact was promised and not delivered.
Okay.
So the customer, again, with each of those, now I've got to prompt another contact. And now I got to talk to this company again, and it's still not
Yeah.
resolved. Their overall satisfaction with you as a company as a whole goes down. And so that's a penalty variable. If you had said, hey, one contact resolution, yeah, good. That's what I expected.
Mhm.
But with each of those subsequent contacts, it goes down. Time-related dimensions of service are the same way. Look, you said you're going to call me back. Number one, you didn't tell me when, so I don't know when to expect it. Is it going to be today? Is it going to be tomorrow? Is it going to be next week? I just had that happen the other day. I called a company about a refund that they should have given me on a thing. And they're like going, well, we'll send this to billing and billing will take a look at it. And if you deserve the refund, they'll take care of it. I'm like going, well, when's that going to happen? Well, I'll just send it to billing. I'm like, no, no, no. Well, when's billing going to take care of it? Is it going to happen the next month? Is it going to happen next week? Is it going to happen tomorrow? Because that's an important question for me, because I want to know what to expect. And I don't want to think it's going to be tomorrow if you're going to tell me it's going to be at least a week.
Mhm.
These are the things where time-related dimensions of service are becoming more important. Customers they're not content with oh, it'll just happen. Oh, we'll just get back to you shortly, in a bit. Well, what's a bit? And so those are penalty variables, but it's the courtesy and friendliness. It's the empathy. It's that personal service relationship that of the holy trinity of customer satisfaction, that's the only reward variable. So now let me, Amy, apply this to life, because this is how, as I began to learn this in my career, I began to go, huh, you know what? This is really no different than my relationship with my wife, Wendy. So, like in our household, most houses have their org chart, whether it's written down or not. And in our org chart, she is at the top of the food chain when it comes to the laundry room because she doesn't even want me in the laundry room. I'm on the chart, but at the very bottom, we're emergency privileges only. I am on the top of the org chart when it comes to everything outside, landscaping, lawn work, and getting the garbage and recycling bins on the curb. So in our neighborhood, the garbage and recycling comes on Monday morning. And my job is to have the bins there by 7:30 when the trucks might come. And some days they come at 7:30. I'm notoriously bad at this because it's the weekend. I'm not thinking about it. It's now since Monday morning. I haven't even thought about it. And Wendy hears the garbage truck coming down the street. It's like, Tom, did you put the bins on the curb? And I'm like, no. Penalty variable, right? Now, because on Sunday, I'd set my Apple Watch to remind me to put the bins out, and I put the bin, and I got them all, took the garbage and recycling, got them out on the curb. I guarantee you, Wendy is not standing in the mudroom going, I love you so much. Thank you. Thank you for putting the bins on because it's not a reward variable. It's a penalty variable. She just expects me to do it. And if I don't do it, then I'm penalized. But if I'm on my way back into the house and I see that our rose bush is in bloom and there's this beautiful rosebud, and I quietly clip it and I take it into the house and I put it in a little bud vase and I bring it into her office and I stick it in front of her, it never fails to get oh, it's beautiful. Thank you. Reward variable. And so my business kind of tell me, look, this is the same thing in life. If I know what the people, my loved ones expect, and I know the things that are reward variables and penalty variables, then I can cater to those. And so one of the ways I've applied this, Amy, is because Wendy does the laundry and she does it faithfully every week. It's like going, I never walk downstairs. And if I find her doing the laundry every week, I say, honey, thank you for doing the laundry. Thank you. I just made it a habit. I will always say thank you. Likewise, when I come in from doing the lawn and I'm sweaty and dirty and gross and dripping with sweat, and she never fails to say, thank you for taking care of the lawn. And you know what? I've had people, when I've shared this with them, kind of go, well, that's stupid. Why should I thank my spouse for just something that they're expected to do? And I'm like going, wow, because I want to have a great marriage.
Yeah.
I want to have a great relationship. And I don't know about you, but saying thank you is about the easiest thing that I can do that will reap rewards in our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And just a couple of weeks ago, I was reading online and there was a study of 40,000 married couples across the United States on this satisfaction with marriage. And what they reported was the number one differentiator between happy marriages and dissatisfied marriages were the words, thank you. Couples who are grateful and say thank you to one another for the things you do to one another make the biggest difference. I'm like, well, yeah, I learned that a long time ago from what I do. So those are the universals. Resolve my issue, be nice, be courteous and friendly and empathetic, and respect my time.
I mean, those all three seem pretty simple, pretty straightforward, like nothing rocket science, not complicated. Why do you think so many businesses struggle with those things?
I think because number one, they don't think about it. They don't necessarily know those things. And it's easy for businesses to get wrapped up in the emotional felt need of the moment, the tyranny of the urgent. What's the fire that we're dealing with? And a great example of that is like, okay, we have we know that we had a product go out that isn't working. And so the immediate thing of the moment is that we've got this issue we have to deal with. And so we're constantly dealing with the momentary issue, and we're not looking at the larger strategic, how do we build an operation that is going to consistently deliver an exceptional, excellent customer experience for all of our customers, no matter who picks up that phone. And so It goes back to, am I going to focus on what's important or I'm going to focus on what's urgent?
Mhm.
And most businesses focus on what's urgent. And I find right now in our current corporate culture, it's only getting worse because in our age of let's just start a company and sell it for $1 billion, everyone's just focused on the short term. Everyone's just focused on let's just build it, get it going, and then find somebody who will buy it. And when you're doing that, you're not thinking long term. You're not thinking longevity. And so the customer's the one who loses when that happens.
Going back to what people are motivated by, when you get into business, if your motivator is people, like relationships, whether that's your customers or your employees, that changes how you look at everything versus I'm just building this business to make as much money as possible. And I guess I haven't talked to a whole lot of business owners where it's just like, I'm just in it for the money. But is that as successful of an approach as the ones that really do care? And then
Yeah,
it's that trust, right? Like this sacred thing of trust, and it takes time to build.
it absolutely does. And, fortunately, the clients that I've enjoyed over the years, typically they hire Intelligentics because they do care about their customers and they do care about their people and they want to build something excellent that will last and be profitable over time. And they understand the long view of the investment that that takes. And so most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time I've worked with really great people who really do care. But I have worked for clients that it really is about the money.
Mhm.
And it's even more difficult when you walk into the C-suite and the lip service is to the people, but the entire operation is built around profit. And so, yeah, just simply it becomes hypocritical. And that's where it's really hard. And but one of the things that I have enjoyed in my career and in my book, I call myself the man in the middle because what my career has allowed me is I come in and I listen to customers and I listen to the calls, and now I'm charged with helping this company improve. Well, what that means is sometimes I'm going in and I'm sitting down with the frontline agents, and when I do, they're like going, "Well, you don't get it." You know, management doesn't care about us. Management, like
Mhm.
we've told them to fix this and it's broken and they never do. And and I have to be like, look, to your point,
Mhm.
okay, give me some trust here because your bosses wouldn't have hired us if they truly didn't care. They wouldn't be investing. And so I'm here talking to you and I promise you I'm going to talk to your bosses, but I need you to do the best you can and listen to me and help do a better job with the task that you've been given. But then I do have to go into the C-suite and sit down with the vice president of customer sales or the CEO and say, okay, you guys, look, the data clearly shows this. And when we listen to the calls, you got customers who are angry and you have not equipped your team with the tools and the knowledge they need to handle these situations. And if you don't fix this,
Mhm.
you're going to alienate your customers and your employees, and you're never going to have the satisfaction levels that you're hiring us to help you with. So it's a both and. You both have to take the data, you both have to address your piece of it if we're going to move the needle towards customer satisfaction. And yeah, and I'm glad to say we've had lots of clients like going, okay, well, we're going to listen to you, Tom, because that's why we hired you to do this. And occasionally you have a client that's like, no, yeah,
It seems like you would have to have a great deal of candor to be able to tell the client what they need to hear
yeah.
versus just what maybe they want to hear. Is that
Uh,
something that you've kind of naturally been candid, or did you used to get nervous or wrestle with it a little bit about what you needed to say?
I'll be honest. Yeah, I mean, coming into the business, it's a place that I've matured over time. When I started in the role, I was really intimidated, especially when talking to upper management and executives. I mean, I was a young man, and you know, just I hadn't been a part of business, and so but fortunately I had many years of the our company's founder and older colleagues who mentored me and were great examples to me in that. So that's something that's grown. But I would also say that when I'm working with data, no, it just is what it is.
Hmm.
And when you're dealing with truth, there's a piece of it that's like going, well, no, this is just true. And you're going to have to decide whether you accept it or not. We had a sales team, and this is a story from the book. The sales manager asked us to come in. They had a sales team of about 12 people, and they both were to make outbound cold calls. They all had a list, but then they also had inbound calls with customers calling in to place orders. So we did the assessment in which we went in and got a bunch of recorded phone calls. And one of the things that became clear is that all of these outbound cold calls that were supposed to be happening every day, they just weren't. I mean, these didn't exist. The sales team were not making these calls. If they had been, the recordings would have been there, but there were no recordings. And I mean, it's just, they're not. So I sat down with the sales manager. I took him out to lunch actually. And I said, look, I just got to tell you, this is not happening. And here's the report, but you need to know there are like no cold calls in this because your team isn't making them. And he's like, well, that's impossible. Well, I don't know what you mean it's possible. He's like going, well, they give me a list every day of the calls they're making. I'm like going, well, if they really made those calls, they would exist as a recording. They're not. And he looked at me and said, this report cannot see the light of day. Like my boss cannot see this report. And I said, well, my recommendation, I said, you know what? I know your boss and I know the owner of the company and they're really good people and people of integrity. Now you have a choice. I said, yeah, I'll give you the report and you can choose to bury it if you want. And I won't say a word, but I said, I know your boss. And I think that if you went into them and said, look, Tom and the Intelligentics team have discovered something that I wasn't aware of. And I'm embarrassed. Obviously I had a blind spot. I didn't know this was happening, but now I do.
Hmm.
And here's my plan.
Hmm.
Here's how I'm going to address it. Here's how I'm going to create some accountability. Here's what I'm going to do. And guess what? If they're not making cold calls today and I fix this problem and they start making cold calls, our sales are going to go through the roof. I got a plan in place. We're going to fix this and we're going to make it a win. I said, if you did that, I am convinced that your boss would go, okay, all right, make it happen. And he chose not to. He buried the report. We
No.
never worked for them again. And he left the job about 6 months later.
Oh, oh man.
So yeah, I mean, you get those experiences where it's sort of like, I can give you all the data you want and I can give you the path
Yeah.
to success,
Yeah.
but you're the one that has to walk it. I can't walk it for you.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, you know that you laid it all out on the table. You did everything you could, but you can't make their choice for them, nor are you responsible for what they choose.
Exactly right. And I've had, and that's happened. I'm glad to say it doesn't happen a lot, but
That's
I
good.
have, multiple stories like that where the person who was responsible was so embarrassed by the results and thought that it would look so bad on them personally within the corporate culture that they chose to just, deep six the report and ignore it rather than actually use it to make things better.
Yeah. Yeah. Man, that's so hard. When you are looking at the clients that you're going to work for, do you qualify your own clients?
We do. And that's a thing that we've gotten better at over the years. I will say that typically what we'll do is do what we call a pilot project, where we'll say, okay, you think you want our services? Let's do this. We'll do one customer survey to establish a baseline of satisfaction and what drives their satisfaction. And then using that, we'll do one quality assessment where we'll just take 100 calls or 300 calls and we'll do a one-time assessment based on what we know from your customers. And with the data from that, we will do a one-time follow-up training or round of coaching with your people. And it gives you the opportunity to experience every piece. And I guarantee you that the data that we're going to give you from this one-time assessment you're going to know.
Hmm.
where our customers are at, what they're thinking, and where we have opportunities to improve. You're going to find out where your team is inconsistent and has opportunities to improve their serve. We're going to actually equip them with tactics and service techniques to fill those gaps. So it's going to be worth the money you invest in this assessment process. And then you can decide if it's something that you want to continue on, and we can customize that for you, what that looks like going forward. Or you can do this one-time thing, walk away with the information and do what you want with it. And so that time, it's kind of a way for people to kind of get a taste and experience everything without making some huge long-term commitment. And I'm just glad that over the years, I mean, we've had tons of clients that we've worked with, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years because they found value in it.
Yeah.
And that's what I love.
That's so cool. So, with all your time being in this business, and this is like to you personally, like as a leader, as an entrepreneur, what has been one of the best things and what has been one of the hardest things about being in business? Not even necessarily specific to your
Okay.
work that you do, but just as an entrepreneur.
That's a great question. I haven't thought about it maybe from such a general perspective. For me, the best thing is the clients that I've gotten to work with, the people that I've gotten to know, the relationships I've been allowed to build. And as someone who, and I didn't share this earlier, but in my book, I talk about the fact that I thought I was going to go into pastoral ministry. That was what I thought I was supposed to do.
Mhm.
And then God goes, no, you're supposed to be over here. But over 30 plus years, guess what? I've gotten to walk with so many people, not just in their jobs, but in their lives. When you coach people every quarter for 20 plus years, you get to
Yeah.
know who they are. You talk about life and you get to talk about life stuff. And I, yeah, I've had, experiences to talk with people who have just gotten a terminal cancer diagnosis. I'm supposed to call coach them. I'm like going, okay, well, we're not going to call coach today. Let's just talk about this. Yes, the fact that you've just heard you're going to die.
Yeah.
Or the sales guy who realized he hit the glass ceiling after he's given 30 years of his life to this company and has just been told you're never going to advance any further. And he's breaking down, bawling in front of me because it's so devastating. And I just had the opportunity to work with him, just to talk to him as a human being in that moment and hopefully encourage him and help him. And so there's just these cool opportunities like going, well, it's in some ways like I was in pastoral ministry, only it's
Yeah.
through the business piece of it. And so that's been the coolest thing, just being part of people's lives. And the greatest compliments that I've gotten, I told you about that one sales guy, but I've had numerous people that are like going, hey, Tom, you've taught me a lot that has made me a better customer service representative or a better salesperson. But the things you've taught me has just made me a better human being because they're things that apply to my life and my relationships outside of work. And when I hear that, it's just like, thank you, God. That's why I do what I do. Because that's what motivates me is people, not the
Mhm.
money, not the profits. That's just the way I'm wired. So that's the best thing. The hardest thing for me has been, yeah, the faith that's required to be in your own business. I don't know. I don't know where the money's coming from. I don't know if the clients are going to stay with us. I don't know what projects we have coming down the pipeline next quarter. And I also don't know, I mean, with one phone call, I could have a 20-year client who's been a bedrock of our annual revenues for 2 decades. With one phone call, they could just say, yeah, we decided not to renew. And that's happened. I can't tell you how many times that's happened. And it's always like, wait a minute. Well, how are we going to replace this income? How are we going to replace this client? And that's the hardest thing. But yeah, I've just learned that looking back, I've never not gotten a paycheck. I've never not paid my bills.
Yeah.
God has always been faithful.
Yes.
I've had seasons where I had to maybe tighten the belt a little bit, but I've also had seasons where it was really, really good. And if you can just learn to be content and walk that walk of faith which I've had to learn to do. And that's been a big spiritual lesson for me from my business, but it's been the hardest piece.
Do you ever feel like you've been through a really tough season in your business, not because you had bad business practices or something, but because God was using it to intentionally shape you and just direct your heart towards him more instead of having your hope or your security be in your business?
Oh my gosh. So Amy, this is a moment of synchronicity. So just this morning, my chapter a day post was on 2 Samuel 4, in which David finds the Abner has died, and the people of Israel find out that Saul's last son is dead, and everyone's scrambling and everyone's in a panic. The only person who's not panicking is David. And it brought back to mind an experience from 2014. My wife and I had been trying to figure out what to do with our house. Our house wasn't working for us because we both work from home, and it just wasn't. And we tried to make it work, and we hired how can we just refigure our house so it'll work for us? It didn't work. And God was just like, had made it very clear, look, I'm going to open the door for you to build a house that will meet your needs. And so we bought the property, we hired the contractor, we helped design the house. And this one day we're really excited because the earth movers moved onto the property to begin digging. And then the phone rang. And our largest, most long tenured client, 23 years at that point, they were 63% of our gross annual revenues.
Oh my gosh.
And they said, we're not renewing our. And I called the contractor and I said, please don't start digging. Give us the weekend to pray.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so there are these moments of panic in life. So it's a great example of like where God was like going, okay, well, are you going to trust or do you want to grasp? And we did some sincere praying, and it was a great example of exactly what David had to do. Like, look, I am not going to take the crown by seizing it for myself, or by killing Saul's son, or by honoring the fact that Saul's son was assassinated. My kingdom is not going to be that way. if I'm going to be king, it's going to be because I trusted God and he put me in that position, not because I took it for myself. And that was kind of the position we found ourselves in, like going, look, are we really going to trust or are we not? We totally felt like God had led us to this point. And so, yeah, facing the uncertain, we just said, okay, go ahead, start digging. We're just going to trust. And you know what? Looking back, that's 11 years ago. I don't even remember how we made it. I don't even remember how.
I was like, what next?
I know there were some unexpected clients that came in, and all of a sudden there's work there that wasn't there before. And it wasn't like one big thing. It was just a million little ways that God was faithful. And we built the house and everything was fine. And the company has continued to prosper. And so it was that season, I think, and this was just a lesson. It's God going, do you really trust me, or you just trust your own abilities and, your own human efforts in this business?
And being in those situations is so scary, right? Because you're just like, oh my gosh, like, how is this going to work out? Like, just feeling that pressure and that intensity. But that's where the faith is, right? Like, that really is. It's like, if you think about all the
Yes.
stories in the Bible, like when the Israelites had left Egypt and they're at the edge of a sea and they have
Yes.
a army coming at them, and you're like, rock in a hard place right there, like
Yep.
literally no way out.
Yep.
And then God puts us in those positions in our life and he's like, are you going to trust me? And you're like,
Yes. So there's this thing that we learned from our local gathering of Jesus followers like 15, 20 years ago. And we had this whole series on it. It's called the chain reaction of praise. So you praise God in every circumstance, which activates our faith to pray powerful prayers to overcome evil. And in do so, we learn to live and reign with Christ. But it begins with praise in every circumstance. And so Wendy and I we just embrace this thing. So we call them now chain reaction of praise moments. So when that phone call came in, literally we have just trained ourselves. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to get on our knees and we're going to praise God. And we're just going to just praise him for his faithfulness and his goodness and be grateful for all that he's done for us and acknowledge his goodness. And as we do that, it activates the faith to then go, okay, God, What's our next step? And where are you leading us? And that's been a huge spiritual lesson for us over the years. And so now it's like, okay, first thing we need to do is praise. And in those moments, and it's revolutionized how we approach those circumstances.
When you thought you were gonna be a pastor and then God called you into this, did you realize at the time that that going into this path was a calling and it was an opportunity to
I didn't know what an opportunity that it was. Um, I the gentleman who's the founder of our company actually had discipled me when I was in high school. So he had been a spiritual mentor. I trusted him. I knew him. The company is founded on biblical principles. The mission statement clearly says that we are. And so there was comfort in knowing that there's this whole faith centric piece to this business. So I was going into something that I could really feel comfortable with and believe in.
Mhm.
But I didn't, again, I had no interest in business. I had zero experience in business. I was not educated in business. I took zero business classes. I
He's a
avoided
cheater.
yeah, even in high school, I avoided econ. And so it just didn't feel like it was a natural fit. But I've had 3 experiences. In fact, I think this is another book someday. But I've had like 3 clear experiences in my journey where I clearly, in my spirit, audibly heard God's voice.
Okay.
And I can only say that. The first one was when I was 14, and God said, "You are going to proclaim my word." That
Okay.
was number 1. The second time was after I had been offered this job. And I was praying, and I'll never forget it, because when you hear the voice, you can go back there in a moment. I was driving my blue Volkswagen 93 Fox up the driveway of our house to our house, and I'd been praying, am I supposed to take this job? And God's voice said, the Spirit said, take this job, stick with it, you will be blessed. And I can't tell you how many times over the 33, 32 years that I've had to go back to that
Yeah.
voice, to God's voice, and go, okay, God, I'm going to stick with this. I've been close to quitting
Mhm.
many times uh, for different reasons.
Mhm.
And it always goes back, and I'm going to go, okay, God, you told me to stick with this and that I would be blessed. And I am totally blessed. So I'm not going to give up on this until you give me leave or you
Yeah.
lead me to something else. And so I think it was that, having that call and that feeling like, okay, God wants me here for a very specific reason or reasons. And that allowed me to kind of put my whole heart into it. And I have been blessed and learned so much.
Just stick your feet there. Yeah. When you decided to write the book, was that something that you'd kinda always had in the back of your mind? Or how did that idea come to be?
Uh, yes. So I'm a journaler. I love to journal, and part of my creative process, and I was sitting at our local pub here in Pella, Iowa, one afternoon, and just having a pint, and I was journaling, and I'd been thinking about all of the spiritual lessons and life lessons that came from my career, that came from the
Mhm.
things that I do. And I thought, I'm just going to write all of these down and see how many I can come up with. And I just kept writing and writing and writing and writing. And I ended up with like over 30. I think it was like 32. And when I was done, I just looked at this list and I went, oh my gosh, like this is a book. Like this is a book. And this could be really, really cool. And that was over 10 years ago. I don't even remember the date it was, but it was over a decade ago. And then I was like going, okay, God, if this is supposed to happen, then it'll happen. And over the
Mhm.
years, I actually had talked to a couple of publishers who were really, really excited about the idea. They loved the title and the idea, but it just was never the right time. The
Mhm.
door was never quite the right thing. And then last year, you know what? Everything fell into place. It was the right time. It was the right moment, the right publisher. And so like, okay, here we go.
And you did it.
Yeah.
And timing, I mean, God's timing is everything. Sometimes it's like he gives you a seed or a dream or a vision, only sometimes you have to just wait until that door opens.
And I've experienced that time and time and time again, that it's all about timing. So that's one of my struggles, Amy, is that, I get, all of the hoorah executive coaches and inspirational business people out there that is going, well, just go for the gusto and make it happen and do the thing. And I, I think that there's value in that, but I think it also has to be balanced with, like, even back to David. If I'm going to be king, then it's going to happen in God's way and God's timing.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to try and make it happen. And I feel like I see so many people in both business and in life that are desperately trying to make things happen and then getting angry with God when it doesn't. And
Mhm.
it's like going, well, is it is it is it God's plan or is it your plan?
Mhm.
What is it you're trying to make happen? And I've just learned along the way, like, look, I'm just going to trust God's plan and try and be open and faithful to doing what I'm called to do. But yeah, try and
I
find that balance of
Yeah, I
listening,
do
not
think
grasping.
that is, for me, one of the hardest things in how the world says to do business, which
Hmm.
is no one's coming to save you. You got to make things happen, work harder, work longer, work smarter, grasp it.
Yeah.
Whereas God's way of doing business is different, and there is a lot of waiting. And I have gone after things where I'm like, God, I know you gave me this vision. I know you told me to
Yeah.
do this. Only when I tried to go and make it happen on my own, I had every door slammed in my face
Yep.
because while, yes, that was a vision he gave me, my heart and my character were not where what they needed to be. And so there is a process. But then also there were things that most of the things that I look back in my life that have happened, I'm like, I did not make any of those things happen. Like the doors that did open that led me to where I am, I'm like, I didn't even know to ask for those things.
Yeah. And when going back to the beginning, when God, as a 14-year-old, God was like, you're going to proclaim my word. And
Mhm.
I very clearly God was given a gift for preaching and teaching. And that showed itself immediately. I assumed that meant, well, I'm going to be going to pastoral ministry and I'm going to be a pastor. And so I was 2 years as a youth pastor, 3 years as a senior pastor, and then did 1 year of parachurch ministry. And what happened in those years was, I had this gift of preaching and teaching, but every other aspect almost of pastoral ministry, like, just shriveled my soul. Like, say, like, Christian Education Committee meeting, and I will run screaming. I I want nothing to do with the administration. I want nothing to do with church politics. I want nothing to do with angry people complaining about, which version translation we're going to have as the Pew Bibles, or what color the curtains are going to be in the sanctuary. That just drives me crazy. Well, lo and behold, looking back at God's providence, being in this business for 30 some years, guess what? Everywhere I've lived and every church that I've attended over those years, I've been given the opportunity to preach and to
Mhm.
teach. I still do. I preach like twice a month, usually at our local church. But I can do it and do the thing that God has gifted me to do and not have to deal with all the other stuff. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not on staff. I don't have to deal with all that stuff. We'll let the people on staff deal with that. So I get to use my gift and what God has called me to do. And it's a perfect fit. And I don't have to be a burden on the church, and they don't have to, pay me a salary. I can just use
Mhm.
my gifts. And I'm like going, this is what Paul did. This is why he made tents, so that he could use his gifts and not be a burden on the church. And I'm like going, yes, I get it now. Uh, and it's wonderful when that happens.
Yeah, and you probably didn't make any of those things happen.
No,
I mean,
not at all. Yeah.
yeah. And yet he's also, he opened the door for you to go into this call monitoring world and then used you to have all kinds of meaningful conversations with people that
Yeah.
you would have never otherwise crossed paths with.
Right. And people that otherwise I know they would never darken the door of a church. And yet I get to have a relationship with them and hopefully have a little influence in their life.
Yeah, that is so cool. So you said there might be a next book.
Yeah.
Do you have some thoughts brewing around that already?
Yeah, I do. I've actually got multiple ideas. Actually, the very next book I think is about it's kind of this paradigm I've been developing over the years in which we look at how God works. Like, my ways are not your ways. And
Yes.
it's about life on four levels and how the world operates versus the way that God operates. And it just kind of helps people kind of go, that's why this is
Mhm.
what God means, and this is why things aren't working out, or this is why politics is so screwed up, or all of those things. So that's the next one, and then I've thought about doing a book that just is about the story of the times that I've heard God's voice and what that's meant to me, and what listening to God's voice has been in my own journey. I
Yeah.
also have an idea, a book about the things that Christians always get wrong, like like always get wrong. For example, we're always praying, and I hear this almost every Sunday, God, please be present. I'm going to go, wait a minute, time out. Scripture makes it very clear that Jesus is the one holding all things together. He is the dark matter that holds the atoms of this chair together. He is never not present. He is present. You can't go anywhere where he is not present. So why are we praying for him to be present? Just I've
Yeah.
noticed several little things like that sort of like what that reveals to me is that there is something in us that feels like he's not present. Well, that's certainly not true. But if we feel that way or think that way, then there's going to be a consequence to that thinking that isn't going to be healthy. So I just have a whole list of those things that I just thought would be a really fun book.
I think those all sound really great. Especially learning to hear God's voice, and like you said, even being an entrepreneur and being in that season where you knew you were supposed to hold on. You knew you were supposed to stick with it, and had you not had that very clear, audible voice of God, you might have walked away when he wanted you to stay.
Oh, multiple times. And Wendy multiple times, had to talk me off the ledge and go, remember what God promised you.
Mhm.
Remember what he told you. I know, I know, I know, I know, I know. So it it wasn't only just for me, but it became a tool because Wendy knew the promise and she knew the promise that it
Yes.
allowed her to be an instrument to hold me accountable and remind me of those things when I needed. Because I guarantee you, if I hadn't heard that voice, I would have
Mhm.
quit multiple times over.
Mhm. Yeah, there's those things that carry us through. Honestly, I before I got married to my husband, my God was like, "This is the person you are supposed to marry," like, clearly. And then there were some seasons of our marriage where I'm like I literally was holding on to that promise for dear life because 'cause I'm like, "We are going to work through this, like, we are going
Yes.
to push through." And then even in business too, there's definitely been some words that we have gripped with everything. I'm like circling. I'm like, "God, you gave me a promise. Your word does not return void. I'm standing on this."
I get it. Been there, done that.
But then it's so cool. It is so cool to have that faith and then to be able to share that story. And I think that ends up being the most powerful thing of all is to be able to share that testimony of here was the Red Sea and the army, and here were all of these things that were up against me, and I had this promise and I held on to it, and God showed himself faithful.
Yes. And in my book, I talk about what I call the service excellence journey. So, like, this client comes in and says, we want to have this culture of service excellence and consistently deliver it. Well, what I've learned over time is there's a journey that every company has to go on to get from point A to the promised land of service excellence. And it's a long journey. And it parallels perfectly the Exodus journey. That it's perfectly parallels it. There is a road out, and there's this initial excitement and progress, and then there's this long slog of wilderness, and before you ever get to the promised land, and at each step of it, it requires a certain amount of faith to stick with it and to believe that we're going to get there. And if the leaders don't have that faith and that trust, they're never going to get there. And I've had a
Mhm.
lot of clients that never do,
That don't.
but I have clients that do. And when
Yes.
you get there, then
Yeah.
you realize the promised land and the blessings that come with having that having a great service excellence system and people. Everyone wins.
Yeah, that's so good. That's so good. All right. So you have your book, which you got anyone can get on Amazon, which
Oh,
is this
correct.
call.
Yep, there it
And
is.
yes, this call may be monitored. Tom Vander Well, and then your company, Intelligentics, if anyone needs help uh, listening and
Yeah.
understanding better what their customers are looking for. And
Yeah.
then also your Wayfarer podcast, which
Yeah.
to tune in to your daily chapter a day.
Yes, it's on all major platforms. So I do it on Spotify, but it's on Apple and some of the others. So just search for my name, Tom Vander Well, Wayfarer, like the Wayfarer glasses that Ray-Ban makes. That you'll just find it. It'll come up in the search engine. You can also go to tomvanderwell.com and my blog is there. Just look up at the top and it says the Wayfarer blog. And I also post the podcast link on every post every day. So you can pull up my posts from there. And if you like to read, great. If you would like to listen, it's available on the blog as well.
And I will also make sure to link all that in the show notes for this episode. So, Tom,
Wonderful.
thank you so much for being here today. I really enjoyed
Amy,
our
thank you so much for
conversation.
having me. And one more plug, I would say, hey, look, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I love to talk. And so if anybody is looking for a speaker for a Christian business conference, or your church is doing a business conference, or an industry event, and you think, hey, this whole customer experience and call monitoring thing would work, please contact me. I would love to get in front of your audience.
Yes, they will be entertained. They will be given some insight and some encouragement. Yes, I 100% support that.
Thank you so much. And it's been an honor, Amy, being on the show. And I hope let's do this again sometime.
I agree. Yes. All right. Well, that is all for this episode. I will see you guys next time.